And so we're sitting there having a conversation with their committee, and we're just listening. And someone says, well, you know the state of Texas was born here.
That's exactly right.
Okay, well, I'm from the penal colony to the west here in Georgia, I had no idea. It's like, stop the farm. What are you talking about? And they said Bonham and Travis are from Saluda County, and Bonham's house is still standing. I went, are you kidding me?
You are listening to History Man, the platform for historians, curators, and authors to tell their stories of the American Revolution, walk in the footsteps of heroes, and proclaim freedom reigns. On today's episode, we are recording out of the Camden Archives building in Camden, South Carolina. And we're with Molly Fortune, CEO of the South Carolina 250th Commission. Welcome, Molly.
Hi, how are you today?
She is also the chief listener of the 250th Commission. Is that correct, Molly?
That is correct. You have something to say, I'll listen, and I'll make some connections for you.
Well, speaking of connections, before you took over this job, you were also the former director of operations and co-founder of the Fox Institute in Atlanta, Georgia. What was that about?
So the Fox Theater is the second largest operating theater in the United States, right behind Radio City Music Hall, and it was a historic building. And I was lucky enough to be in charge of the entire facility itself, air conditioner, which was original, carpet, furnishings, and then the operations. So whenever you had a production that moved in, like The Lion King, and they wanted to make adjustments to the theater, they'd have to work through myself and our staff. So I did that. But what was interesting is that I started to get a lot of calls from other historic theaters in the state of Georgia saying, how has the Fox been so successful? And went to the board with an idea for the Fox Theater Institute, and we were the only state to date that has inventoried all of its historic theaters. There are 342 in the state of Georgia. And we started doing a grant program where we gave money to restoration, to operations, to tell their story. Basically, you tell a story through their building, which everyone has a connection to a historic theater, and it makes economic development for someone's downtown.
What a great economic generator. And then you took that platform and then you became the director of the Newberry Opera House, which is a very big keystone in that particular part of South Carolina.
It is, and it's actually also known nationally. So when I jumped from the Fox Theater, which was in downtown Atlanta, and moved to the Newberry Opera House, it was the same type of big personality. The Newberry Opera House is, like I said, known nationally. And just to use that building and that story, which is of a different era, it's the 1880s, for the economic engine for downtown Newberry.
Well, talking about big personalities, you are a big personality in the 250th Commission here in South Carolina. And for those of our listening audience who aren't aware, South Carolina is at the forefront of those celebrations getting ready to happen in the next couple of years. And quite frankly, they've already started happening, and you've got your tentacles out in just about every part of this state. Tell us a little bit about those.
It is very true. Tentacles is a great word because it's amazing how many avenues and places that it can creep, whether it's education and trying to do a Liberty Day for the entire state where we bring kids down to the State House and they get to actually sit in the chambers and negotiate and discuss and take things back, all the way from lifelong learning. I think that's been a real eye-opener for me. It's just not K through 12. It's, as I say, K through dead, which someone said, maybe you should change that to lifelong learner. But we have so many people moving into the state. How do we reach that audience? Publications. Francis Marion papers are getting ready to come out. Thomas Sumter. We've learned so much from just doing that philosophical or intellectual type of work. And taking collections, telling those stories. And some folks may wonder, how on earth did you get from the entertainment industry to the job that I'm in now? And in reality, my background is architecture and historic preservation. And so when you do historic preservation, you use the architecture. Everything tells a story. This beautiful building we're in right now, the way you look at it, you can see different, as we call them, ghosts that are here. And you start to tell those stories and intertwine it. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking the stories that you have given, that Camden has given, that has Saluda. I'll tell you a story about Saluda in a little bit. has given, and you turn that into a grassroots, I want to know, I want that information, I want to go visit there. And then you get boots on the ground and people need to go to the bathroom, they want a Coke, they want to eat something, but yet at the same time they're tripping over history all the while.
Speaking of, well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's say we go to a small community, and Camden certainly has its share of history going back long before even the Revolutionary War. But how do you take the Revolutionary War and take it to somewhere like Chesterfield, or take it to Dillon, or to go up to Greenwood, or to Lawrence? How do you take that, and how does that impact economically those communities?
Great question. South Carolina, you talked about this a little bit. We are on the forefront. So this is federal legislation for all 50 states to have a commemoration or celebration. We prefer to call it a commemoration for the 250th signing of the Declaration of Independence. South Carolina did it a little bit differently, and our commissioners were brilliant. It starts at the county level. We have 46 counties, and each county has passed a resolution to be involved in this. They know where the bodies are buried, both figuratively and literally. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Some of them are in farm fields, out unmarked graves.
Unmarked graves, right? And so by doing that, we engage with that community, and it becomes a piece of their fabric. So when they do a long-range plan with their county or their city, or they have industry moving in, which is really looking at quality of life, they've got those stories and they've got that infrastructure. So within the 46 counties, you've built an infrastructure of tourism and heritage tourism, which those people stay 3 days longer and spend $37 on average more than your average tourist. So when you start to talk about development and economics, it's the people that do walk downtown that we just passed coming into this beautiful building. They're buying a Coke, they're doing something, but yet they've been to the History Center, they're going out to the battlefield, and they're doing those types of things. And it creates a quality of life that's just beyond the normal 9-to-5 downtown bustle type situation. A great story that just actually recently happened, and it's been fascinating because I can't tell you how many counties said, we don't have anything. Hold my musket. I got a story for you. You do, I promise you. And we've been able to find those connections in every county. One that came up just recently was Saluda County, okay, which is right near Newberry, which is where I live. Well, Saluda thought we don't really have much, but we got Clouds Creek and we got Mine Creek and we got this, that, and the other. And so we're sitting there having a conversation with their committee, and we're just listening. And someone says, well, the state of Texas was born here.
That's exactly right.
Okay, well, I'm from the penal colony to the west here in Georgia. I had no idea. I was like, stop the farm. What are you talking about? And they said, Bonham and Travis are from Saluda County, and his house, Bonham's house, is still standing. I went, are you kidding me? So what they did is I said, do a show and tell. Show me what you think is important. And for an entire day, the wonderful people of Saluda, some of their county council members and their emergency management and their historian, drove me and Bill Davies around, and we saw Mine Creek, which was a massacre that happened before the First Blood at 96, which was only 20 miles away. We went to Clouds Creek massacre. Turns out, and Bonham's house is still there, and we got in. Turns out his mother was the one who identified the 30 bodies. And then we went to the cemetery where she buried them, which the church was always there. So they themselves started to put together this tour in their mind. And I simply was just the one who didn't know anything. It was like, what? What else happened? What do you mean this community was here? And it got them thinking, because they're seeing the trees, because they live it every day, and it's who they are. But I came home and I called my counterpart in Austin, and I said, I just want you to know that Texas was born in Saluda County. I said, Bonham and Travis, their stuff still exists in Saluda County. And she said, hold on, and she got her commission chair for the state of Texas, and I'm going to be talking to them about a partnership between the Alamo, San Antonio, and Saluda County. Now, you have to remember, Saluda County doesn't even have a hotel.
No, it doesn't.
They don't even have a hotel.
You talk about getting off the interstates and on the back roads. We're to Saluda is it.
And I was startled to learn how many colonial roads intersect in Saluda. And one goes to Newberry, which is where I live. And by the way, I found out throughout this whole process that my Patriot walked from 96 down Main Street through Newberry, right in front of my house. And so you get that excitement going, and that's what really helps. But every county, interestingly enough, has a story.
When you talk about every county, how many counties do we have in South Carolina?
46.
How many are a part of the commission now?
46.
46. Did we have battles in each county?
You know, that's a great question. I think that, and I was asking Jack Parker, who wrote Parker's Guide, this question. I said, how did you come up with this idea of battles and skirmishes? And he said, in his mind, a battle was where someone died. A skirmish could just be where one or two people kind of duked it out. I think, this is me speaking, I can identify majority of counties had something in them that we know of. What has been interesting in this process is that it's living. And the royal you, finding letters, you're finding archaeology, you're discovering the fact that the Native Americans may have had something going on in like Horry County that contributed to success somewhere else. So it's not a stagnant process. But even like Horry County, you can say, this is why it's named Horry County. This is
That's right.
who it ties back to.
Right.
So that's been interesting. So I can't guarantee that every single one. We know the majority of them.
But there's a history, regardless of whether there were battles, there's definitely a history there.
100%.
Yeah. When we talk about the tentacles and going into all these communities, I would imagine over the course of time, the lines do get blurred because the state itself has changed. It's gone from parishes to districts to counties, and all of the infrastructure of the state has changed from a governmental standpoint. So that kind of causes some of this blurred understanding of the history of those communities because it gets lost and stuff.
It does, and that's a really good point. One of the observations that I would have at this point in the game is that when we started out, it was 46 counties. And the counties were looking, and they have their own groups, and they were looking at themselves. And then they realized, wait a minute, they were coming from Greenwood County. So maybe we should call Greenwood County and see what they're doing. And it became this look at, back in time, going back to these districts, the old 96 district, and saying, oh, maybe we should partner with all of them. And that's been a really beautiful thing to watch. People tear down those county lines, if you will, and kind of go back to, wow, we were really kind of out here on our own, and we have a common history together based around X event or Y event.
Well, it certainly happened in the Camden Resolves and the Long Bluff Resolves.
Absolutely.
And where those were districts at that time, and including, places as far, just in the Camden Resolves, places, you had Lee County, you had Kershaw County, you had Sumter County, it goes all the way up
to Williamsburg, I think,
to
down
Williamsburg,
yeah.
And that sort of. But you're exactly right. And the Great Wagon Road or the great travelways interconnected these communities like they did.
There's nothing like last 2 weeks. I've been on the road a lot. I went down to Newberry to Charleston to Georgetown, and then back home in one day, and then up to Greenville the next day, and then I've been doing little jaunts around. And I have to remember, these people were doing this on foot,
right,
on a horse,
right,
or in a wagon. There was no railroad.
That's right.
And
crossing the rivers.
And crossing the rivers. That is one thing that has excited me about the PD region, is that they've really taken to that waterway aspect with the ferries. They've even incorporated a kayak tour now to go down some of the rivers. That alone is another mechanism that we've long since forgotten. And when you cross the Broad River, even coming here, the Watery just a minute ago, oh, that's a piece of cake.
Right.
Nope.
Not back then.
Not back then.
Yeah.
And it's been real interesting for people to see that shift in people's minds.
Right. So tell me some more about these tentacles. I mean, you got, how have you included even some of these ceremonial entities like the Sons of the American Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution, the Dames.
The Dames.
You know, then you have down in Charleston, you've got the Powder Works down there, and then you've got this whole other Cherokee Trail that goes all the way up from the coast all the way up into the mountains, and that's a separate thing. And then you've got the Marion papers. Then you've got these people researching and writing papers on any number of subjects, whether it be the women or the children and the African Americans. How do you pull all that together?
I don't know, but you're going to make me need a nap after that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow, that's a lot. It is a lot. And
well, it's not my project.
I know,
it's your project.
It's great. It's an awesome, and as I sometimes tell the commission when we kind of are like, wow, that's a lot. It's a great problem to have. Mm-hmm. It really is. And they're all very different, just like you said. And unlike other states, it has been very important to our commission that this live in perpetuity. If you back up history a little bit, George Bancroft, who was Lincoln's Secretary of the Navy, was a huge lover of South Carolina and had written some books. He did a lot of textbooks talking about how no other state gave more than the state of South Carolina. And then South Carolina said, well, hang on, we got one more thing. And the other war, I'm going to make a t-shirt because a lot of people get them mixed up. The other war happened and his opinion changed. And in the I think it was about 1868, my date could be wrong, he really kind of wrote South Carolina out of the textbooks, if you will. Fast forward to modern day, you go to a gathering of the other states, say in Philadelphia or Virginia, and you have to remind them that there are states below that, that we've been here for a very long time too, and that if we hadn't worn Cornwallis out, he never would have wanted to vacation in Yorktown and given them the surrender.
Right.
So we were behind the power curve already in that. So again, fast forwarding a little bit, the commission made Charles Baxley made the decision, this has to live in perpetuity. And he set up a trust. And this trust is a nonprofit. You can donate to it. It is going to be here in Camden in a beautiful building that y'all have here. And it will be that repository. So when you have a county that is doing a grant, say, on a driving tour of James Island or the kayak tour of this, or a manuscript that's being written about the 12 patriots in Charleston that were free men of color, genealogy that's being done, it will all transfer from the commission when we expire in 2033, because that corresponds to 1783, and it will live there. Whether it's digital format, whether it's someone's collections, whether it's papers. And you, as someone who wants to research the Southern campaigns, now have a place to go. And it is the best and most up-to-date information. And again, we just talked about the fact that it's really actually living. And that those folks will be the caretakers of that history and ensure that we are not written out of the books again. The other portion that we've done is a foundation. A lot of folks don't necessarily have a collection they want to donate, or papers, or an idea, but they want to do something in memory of someone, or they want to sponsor a certain type of educational event, or whatever that might be that makes their heart happy. The foundation will be able to take those donations and use it to promote the work of the commission and of the counties until 2033. And then all of that will go back to them, to the trust as well.
How would people contact the commission right now, or do they contact the foundation? How do people get involved in that?
It can be a little confusing, and and this is all brand new. These three entities are really brand new and very innovative. Again, no other states do taking this type of approach. The best thing to do is just reach out to the commission, and we are customer friendly. We will come to you. We will answer any question you have, and we'll say, that might be a best fit for the trust, and I'm going to make a phone call and they're going to call you back. Or this might be a best fit for the foundation. Or sometimes that's the War of 1812, but we know somebody over that can help you with that. We're never going to leave you empty-handed. We're going to help you find what makes your heart happy.
It's interesting that when you go through this process and you start talking to people in all these communities and they start seeing the stepping stones that they've been blind to over the years, then they start going back to their families and go, wait a minute, we do have some diary that was from the family that's been passed down all these years. And if we're not careful, that diary is going to get lost and torn up or something. Where is a good place to take that? And what you're saying is you are open to having conversations about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I always go, the historic preservationist in me goes back to everybody in America wants to know their story. That's why ancestry is so incredibly powerful in the United States. Everybody has a story and they want to know more about their story. So once you find those elements that connect you to the past, and you start realizing that these people actually laughed and cried and couldn't stand snails or hated living in the backcountry and preferred this, and you put those personalities with those names, it becomes incredibly important that lives in perpetuity. And you know that you may run into a situation where your kids or your grandkids could care less about that. But it's still important, and it's still part of the South Carolina story. And the trust will be happy to help take care of that and facilitate that.
And you kind of look at it from the most rosy standpoint. Just because your children are maybe not open to that now doesn't mean 20 years from now that they are still not open to it. They may be open to it at that point when they look at life through different lenses. But this is a place for it to be held till those moments come up again.
That's a really, you bring up something that reminded me of the gentleman that we found at the Camden battlefield and have reburied here in Camden, those heroes. Both sides of the coin, by the way, they're all heroes as far as I'm concerned. And you have to remember that I think it was 15, and just now, one of those families is made up of probably 200 people. So out of that 200 people, there might be that one person that wants to know more about their family.
Right.
And then, thank God, so-and-so, 150 years ago, took that diary out of the attic.
Right.
And donated it, because now they can make that connection.
That's right.
And that's pretty powerful.
I think it's important for people to know where they came from, good or bad, where they came
100%
from.
good or bad.
And, take kind of a springboard and say, this is where I came from, this is where I'm headed, that sort of thing. And that's the past, but at least I know I've come from somewhere, right? So.
Yeah, and that's another great point, is that the commission is dedicated to tell all those untold stories. Native American, women, children, free and enslaved, and even our friends, the Loyalists. Everybody has a story to tell. And I was in a meeting of the Thomas Sumter paper, and I'm the non-historian. Now, you put me in front of a building, I can tell you all you want to know about that building. I can tell you how the bricks were made, the mortar was made, I can tell you where the bathrooms are and the ventilation. But as far as military papers, a flank is on a grill. It is, and I'm a military wife, as a lot of people know. So I'm always the one that's kind of the squeaky wheel in the back, and the only female that's on this particular papers. And I said, has anybody looked for Mrs. Sumter's diaries? And I can remember one of the folks said, why would we? And I said, well, as a military spouse, there is pillow talk, and there are letters that go back and forth. I said, she played a big role in his life and his choices. She was lame. She had an arm that was lame. And I said, I just kept saying, well, has anybody really looked? And then a descendant of Thomas Sumter's is on that particular paper working group, and said, I think I might know a place to go look. And I think he's still looking. But again, it's just because it's a military engagement or something like that doesn't mean that there aren't layers and layers and layers that still need to get told.
And that is so interesting. And it's a visual thing when you say that, the layers and layers. The community was layers upon layers of whether it be family or connections back to the old country, whether it be Ireland or Scotland or Wales, or France,
these were people that were just as complicated as you and I sitting right here. Right. And you find out those things, and going back to that tentacle question. They are tentacles because once you have that knowledge, how do you let others know? And it's through the education. It's through meeting people where they are, whether it's augmented reality, whether it's something on television, whether it's social media. We have a very robust social media that talks about a lot of these things, whether it's going to a reenactment and immersing yourself. That's how it lives on and how it reaches that next group of people to be interested.
What are some of the events that y'all have sponsored over the last year and will continue to sponsor over the years to come?
Oh, wow. That's a big old rap sheet. I love it. We did, one of my favorite stories is the Charleston Tea Party.
That's a great one.
The 250th anniversary of the Charleston Tea Party was in a working group with the America 250, which is the big national organization that just kind of makes connections for all the states. And Jonathan up at the Boston Tea Party Museum said, okay, we got this working group and we're the first and this is what we're doing. So let's go down the line and see, what other people are going to do so we can support each other. And I was going to say tentatively raise my hand, but you know me better than that. And I said, Jonathan, I think you're wrong. I think Charleston was first. And he said, prove it. And I said, hold my teacup. And with Catherine Pemberton and the Powder Magazine and a lot of the stuff that they were doing, which was a grant from us to get it done, and all the dames and all those fabulous people in Charleston back on the map as the first tea party. So that was an event that we sponsored. And we also asked our partners to keep data. And we found out that there was, with 700 people that came to this spontaneous type of event, that the sales at each particular site that were open for the public for free increased by about 100-fold just in one day. So there's that balance too. We did the Camden District Resolves. We helped with that. We've done we helped with the Camden Burials. We have done a couple events up in Hanging Rock events up there. We've done some things with the at the Old Stone Church up in Pickens.
Yeah.
Andrew Pickens, of course, is up there and gave money for that church. We've done things down in Beaufort and Allendale, pretty much everywhere. Georgetown, funny enough, let's wrap the tea party up. We got Georgetown acknowledged as the 18th tea party. And that will be the last tea party, and they celebrated theirs last weekend.
So we were the first and the last?
We're the first and the last.
Yeah.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go.
And what was great about that is that Jonathan and some folks from Massachusetts tried to come down and really celebrate with us. So we're looking at a lot of different types of events, everything from marker unveilings. There are an immense amount of small activities going on that are listed on our website. And if you are in a county and you know of things, we would definitely want to hear about them. We want to publicize them. We want to put them out there. Some of the bigger ones that we're really focusing on are 2025, which is that First Blood at Greenwood at the Star Fort, and kind of doing a dry run for Carolina Day. And then in 2026, doing that 250th anniversary of Carolina Day, but doing it statewide. So it's Carolina Days. Because, again, I'm from the Penal Colony of the West. June 28th, 1776 was before July 4th, 1776. And we defeated the British Navy for the first time in about 200 years, right here on our own soil.
That's right.
So we need to celebrate that and push for that to be a statewide event. We all have to celebrate that. That's right. When we really put our foot down and said, this is who we are.
And we've just touched the tip of the iceberg of what y'all are involved in. And we want to ask you a question that we try to ask everyone in these interviews is, what does liberty mean to Molly Fortune?
It means responsibility. We have a responsibility to educate ourselves, to ensure that our future generations are educated as to why we exist and how we exist. I grew up taking civics as part of my high school education. I don't believe that's taught anymore. And it occurred to me about 3 weeks ago that there's this conversation about, well, maybe we should get rid of the Constitution. Maybe we should rewrite it. And I thought, well, if we're not teaching civics anymore, no wonder people think it's okay to do that. They don't understand or take the responsibility for what it took to get here. And again, it goes back to that relationships. These are people that were very complex, just like you and me walking around today, that had very strong ideas and participated together to create this great experiment that we get to live in. And that responsibility lies with us to educate ourselves every single day about that and to educate those that follow us.
What a great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tell people how they can get a hold of your commission, your events that are going on. How do they stay incorporated within those events that are going on?
The easiest way is to go to our website, and that would be South Carolina 250. You have to do the 250.com. And on there is everything you could ever possibly want, and we add more stuff to it. So there's bibliographies. You can sign up if you need a speaker. If you're in a county, you can download the county toolkit. You can sign up for the e-news. So we have a forward-facing one that is just for the general folks that say, hey, you know, I don't necessarily want to be a worker bee, but I definitely want to know about the things that are going on. And then those that really kind of say, I want to be involved on the county level and really know what the counties are doing, because I might be able to offer my assistance at some level. So we have 2 of those. If you have any questions, the phone number is also on there. We have grants. I do want to speak to that for a second. We are funded by the legislature, and we are one of the only states that's funded by the legislature for this initiative. And so far, we've been able to give $7 million in about 24 months to our counties directly.
Wow.
For projects.
Wow.
And anything we do is free to the public. We do have a couple of partners that we're working through that do charge admissions to certain things, but how can we get those folks there for free? That is incredibly important to us. It is the public's money, and we need to work on that. So any and all of these projects that we talk about, the Francis Marion papers, oral histories, articles, they are free to the public on our website. So the easiest thing is to go to our website, make sure you get really overwhelmed, and then call us, and we will send you a life preserver.
You're also on social media on a number of places, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, we are there on social media, and a lot of stuff is put on social media, so there's a way to kind of stay plugged in there too.
Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you.